The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly podcast coming to you on April 24th, 2021. How you guys doing? Rare Saturday podcast here, once again. Although, I'll be honest, the last couple months, it's actually become more rare, more common, should I say, on these Saturday shows. Not every Saturday, but sometimes the schedule works out in a way where you can't do it this day, and things free up, and you get a couple minutes here to dive in, and you're kind of feeling antsy to do the show, and, of course, with me, I love doing podcasts. I could do this shit fucking five times a week, and I probably should look at doing that in the future, but I don't know. I gotta balance the thing out, of course, with everything else with my family. Speaking of my family, real quick. I mean, we'll get to it in a second. This podcast, I guess you go subscribe to all podcast catchers. Can't talk today. Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, you name it, Google Podcast, YouTube, Earnestly Media on YouTube, Earnestly Media on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that. Let's check it out and engage. Like I said, it's a build community here. You ask questions, I'll answer it, of course. You want to engage in some topics, but in the world of sports, pro wrestling, lifestyles, music, you name it. I'm here. I'm here for it, man. Really here for it. So, like I said, my family. So today's been a rough day, actually. Well, first I had to take my dog to the vet today. He had something going on with his eye. Looked like he was going blind. His right eye, like on Wednesday or Thursday, it looked like it was turning gray. And I was like, oh, let me wait a day or two, see if it maybe improve. And it looked a little better the next day on Friday, which is fine. Then this morning, looked worse. So my wife took him to the vet when I went to work and picked back up, of course, and got some meds and all that. They take some blood work and all that. We'll see how it goes. We've had him 12 years now. English American Bulldog. Typically don't live beyond 13 years, honestly. So, I'm prepared for the worst, obviously. I don't want to think about that, but you do know at some point this is going to happen. And of course we've had, we're a pretty big family on pets. We've had cats and that we've lost. I think we've lost 2 cats since my wife and I have been a couple. We're now on our third cat right now, I think. Our third cat. We've had 2 dogs. One we actually gave away to a family friend because they weren't getting along, and that dog was sort of a threat to our kids. The baby Logan, at the time he was born, looking really snappy. So, but other than that, he's okay now. Like I said, he gave him his meds and all that, so he's fine. Then we have this morning the kids they were just wild rambunctious. And I gotta tell you, I'm kind of over the toddlers now, man. I'm really over the toddlers. As much as I love my kids, 8 and 4 years old, I'm over the toddler phase for the 4-year-old. I'm really over it. I don't know. Is 4-year-old considered a toddler still? I mean, I think he's starting pre-K in a few months, so maybe the toddler phase is over. I don't know. But yeah, I'm over it. Honestly, I'm just really over the toddler phase now. I enjoy parts of it, but a lot of the annoyances and stuff, it's draining and all that. I'm saying this now, and then they get older. I'm like, oh God, I kind of miss when we were kids when we were young. Because my wife and I, we already made a decision. We made a decision already, as far back as 2 years ago, that we are not having any more kids. Like, we are done. We actually considered a third kid when we had our second one. And then we realized that this one was a handful. This, like Logan, for example, was like having 2 kids in one. Like Eli was, it's funny because Eli is rough now to some degree. A lot of it because he's very strong-minded and all that, independent, but very strong, hard-headed in some ways. So it's a good and bad thing at the same time. Hopefully it's used for good as he gets older. But he was easy growing up. Only child too on top of that. With Logan, though, it's a lot more like having 2 in 1. A lot more demanding. Definitely more attached to me, especially growing up. Which is not a problem. I love my kid, but it's such a radical difference from the first to the second one. You know what I mean? You know, I'm just kind of over the Tyler face now. I was telling my wife the other day, and I think she agrees that, and it's okay to be selfish with it sometimes too. I mean, we all sit there and say, oh, well, you don't enjoy this, you're selfish parents. No, I'm just being truthful. This is being truthful and honest. I'd rather be honest about it than not be honest about it. You know, I miss some of the independence we had as parents, as adults. My wife and I, there's parts of our lives that, and then there's some regrets, obviously, in some degree, with not accomplishing things we could have done when we didn't have kids. And look back now, it's like, wow, we could have done that. We could have traveled here. We could have did this thing and all that. And there were things that I prioritized over other things. And now I'm looking back and I say, I wish I had prioritized that more. The biggest thing for us, I think I wish we had prioritized more is traveling. I wish we would have lived a more simpler life monetarily. I'm not saying we lived this extravagant life, but we could have cut some more corners back when, even before we had kids, and put a lot of those finances into traveling and other experiences. And when I was sitting there, I'm sitting here now at age 40, turning 41 next Saturday, by the way. So he wanted to give me gifts. Go right ahead. I was joking. But I'm sitting here now, 8 years, plus years later, I'm like, I could have done that. I could have done that before we had our first one. That's all. So, I mean, I don't sit here and live a life of regret most of the time, but there are moments where I'm thinking about, like, yeah, I could have done that instead, But hey, it is what it is, right? So, I tried to do this show a couple days ago, so I wanted to talk about 3 days ago, the 21st of April, rather, it was the 5-year anniversary of 5 years. I don't know if to call it anniversary, but 5 years since the passing of one Prince Rogers Nelson, or affectionately known as Prince. I'm a big Prince fan, obviously. Like, everybody knows I love MJ. I love Steve Wonder. My top three is always MJ number one, Michael Jackson number one, Steve Wonder number two, and then Prince number three in terms of my favorite artists. Not including bands, of course, because a lot of bands I'm into. But, I actually forgot that day it was actually 5 years. Because I've been so, this week especially too, between the Chauvin trial, with the verdict and all that, and some of the things we're doing here at home and working a lot, and just kind of get through each day alive and all that, I almost forgot that and this is on the 21st, which is on Wednesday, that it was 5 years since his passing. I remember where I was, especially. Remember he had gotten sick or collapsed a week before that during touring, and then I remember hearing the news early morning, and I literally was like beside myself, like not myself, I was crying on that, but I was just flabbergasted because I never thought Prince, people, would have passed away as young as he was. I think it was 56, 57 years old. Can't remember exactly. But I was flabbergasted. I then did not think that he would pass away this soon. He obviously looks healthy. He was never into like drugs and all that stuff, but apparently he had a lot of situations that came up in recent years with, medical things that he had to take care of and painkillers, all that. Obviously. I mean, I'm not going to judge the guy, obviously. But it was shocking. It was shocking. And, it's funny with Prince, too, for me. I've, 30 years come a long way. Because you have that whole Michael Jackson Prince thing. Who's a better artist? Who's this and that? Which is, to me, is stupid for me. Because, number one, it's just like the LeBron James, Michael Jordan argument. Like, both are completely different basketball players. So you can't really compare them. It really applies here too to the same here with Michael Jackson and Prince. Like they're actually two completely different artists. Like literally the way they approach music. Like Prince is a better musician, obviously. I mean, he had literally one of the greatest musicians in the history of music. Like literally, he can play anything, any instrument. You know what I'm saying? You put it in his hands, he knows how to play it. Whereas Michael Jackson was much more of an entertainer. He can interpret music. He didn't play, piano. I mean, as well as Prince, obviously, but he can interpret music in different ways, and also he was a much bigger, broader entertainer, and the messaging also and how they presented their music was much different. Prince was a lot more secure with his music, whereas Michael Jackson was a lot more open to different things, and the way that not just how they were marketed, but the way they marketed themselves as artists is completely different. So you can't compare the two. Like, I would argue Prince is much more, like, Prince would cater more to adults, young adults to older, whereas Michael Jackson's, it's age birth to 80. You know what I'm saying? Was one of the reasons why he was the more popular artist worldwide, because his audience is a wider audience. Whereas Prince was much more precise in how he marketed his music, which I respect too, to be honest with you, which I really do respect. But 5 years, he's my biggest regret, musically speaking, is not seeing him live. And he just started touring again in recent, before he passed away, the last couple of years, between 2014, 15, and 16. I wanted to go see him live, and actually, at one point when I heard he was touring again, I was hoping he had some dates down here in South Florida, and I was hell bent on going to see him. To this day, it still pisses me off. My father saw him live years ago. He says that by far the best shows I've been to. So one of my biggest regrets is not seeing Prince live. Really is. But again, by the way, his estate's amazing. Like, you compare the two estates of the two artists, Michael and Prince. Like, Michael obviously is obviously in the past 12 years has been gone, has had a more monetarily bigger estate than anyone, but the way it's run in comparison to Prince is not even close. Prince's estate runs laps over MJ's estate, posthumously. So, anyway, 5 years out, Prince, still missing him, we got the music though. We got the music, Okay, let's talk about Brett Favre, because Brett Favre once again put his foot in his mouth once again. Brett Favre, retired quarterback, Hall of Famer, who I believe, I said for years, one of the most overrated quarterbacks in history of the sport. Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer, deservedly so, but I think he's overrated. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. A lot of people put him in top 10. I have him more in between 11 and 15, but we could argue that one day. So Brett Favre has had a kind of a little bit of a turn, a heel turn, if you will, if he really assesses it that way. Within the football community, obviously he's was a big Donald Trump supporter, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. He can do what he wants. It's freedom of choice, right? Which of course perturb people. Which I don't know why it surprises people. Honestly, why was that surprised? Like, he would support Donald Trump. I'm just saying. I mean, look at him. I mean, he fits the, not to judge here, but he fits the kind of the what a voter of that side will look like. That's not a surprise. I mean, not trying to judge here, but it is what it is. And he's had some comments in recent weeks about Deshaun Watson. We spoke about on the podcast a couple episodes back. Unpopular comments about the politics and sports and whatnot, and how we need to keep sports out of politics and politics out of sports and all this crap, which is kind of rich for him to say, considering the fact that and I'll say it again, when Donald Trump decided to weigh in on players 4 years ago during the Colin Kaepernick talking points, I didn't hear him say that. Just saying, is it really about more so the politics or the politics that you agree with? Answer that question, Brett. Did again this week, put his foot in his mouth. Following the Derek Chauvin verdict, he was quoted as saying that basically, that he didn't think Derek Chauvin meant to kill him, meant to kill George Floyd and this and that, and God, the thing with Brett, this is the thing with me. This is why I'm pretty rational when it comes to these kind of things. Freedom of speech, all that. But sometimes it's better to not say anything. Like, unless you're really trying to get people to come down your throat and to criticize you and all that. Which, I don't know. Maybe that was Favre's intent here, to grab some attention. I mean, the guy is kind of an attention whore anyway, has always been. Especially the way he handled his retirement and unretirement, retirement and non-retirement, at the end of his career. So it won't surprise me that he would do this for attention, but And again, he has a right to his opinion. No one's saying that. He's right to his opinion. I just think, sometimes there's certain things you just don't say. And, yeah. What are you doing, Brett? And he's obviously losing fans left and right because of some of these comments he says. Even if you appreciate Brett Favre's work and stuff, but some of the things he says is just kind of like outlandish. Like, what are you doing? Like, seriously, what are you doing right now? I mean, stop. Like, sometimes less is more. Less is more. I'm not saying you have the right to believe that, but just the kind of the confidence of him saying it the way he did. And again, this is the same guy telling you to keep politics out of sports. Okay. Now, granted, he's not playing anymore, so I guess it kind of applies to him. It doesn't really apply to him because he's no longer an active player, but I don't know. It's kind of sad to see Brett Favre kind of a bit irresponsible with some of his words and not really seeing the room, not really seeing what's out there, I don't know. It's basically a lack of self-awareness more than anything else. In my opinion, anyway. Just saying. Sticking to NFL here, the Cleveland Browns actually picked up Baker Mayfield's fifth-year option. Okay, that's cool. He had a really good year last year. The Browns made the playoffs for the first time since George Bush was president, first term. Browns actually won a playoff game. Yeah, that was a thing. But you noticed Baker Mayfield did not get an extension. Typically, quarterbacks, young quarterbacks that have had a successful run the first couple of years will get an extension before the fifth year. Like even Carson Wentz even got an extension in Philadelphia before things fell apart last year. It's kind of strange that Baker Mayfield didn't get an extension. That kind of strange. Now you can speculate maybe the Browns, especially with the salary cap where it's going and where 8% down from last year. Maybe they just took a chance here to do this to hold serve, and then maybe after this year, I don't know, but it looks like Baker Mayfield will be a lame duck quarterback. Maybe the Browns don't believe in Mayfield. I don't know. I don't want to speculate on that, but maybe that is the case, that they don't believe in him anymore. Or long term anyway, that is, there's still questions. I don't know. I'm not the biggest Mayfield fan in the world. I think he's a solid quarterback. He's definitely, if you want to put him in a ranking of a tier, like I put him between 14 and 20. Yeah, he's definitely in that ilk. And I'm not even just saying because of last year. I'm talking about the entire resume. Because he's been wonky. He's had a wonky start to his career, But not extending him kind of says a lot about where the Browns are at with him, I guess, right? You have to assume that if you're not getting an extension, obviously pick up the option, because you have to pick up the option, obviously. That's the other option to have, no pun intended. But, if you believe he's your guy going forward, don't you lock him up already? Quarterbacks, again, we've been saying this on this podcast for the last 10 years. Quarterbacks don't go on trees. That's been one of the themes of this podcast for many years. Is that quarterbacks don't go on trees. You got a young quarterback who had a solid year last year. Maybe there is something to that. Maybe they don't believe in him. I don't know. Maybe they really don't believe in him. Maybe they believe in him, but they want to see more. That they don't want to tie themselves to a guy that may, for lack of a better term here, shit the bed next year. Now, I think the Browns will be good next year. I think the Browns going to be one of the favorites in the AFC. So long as Baker Mayfield improves, or at least plays as well as he did last year, does not, draw back, or, I don't know. But I don't know, not picking up his option, kind of, something to think about, something to watch this year. Something to watch. So, speaking of NFL, and young players and all that, we are 5 days away from this year's NFL draft. I typically don't really get too excited about the NFL draft. Really don't. But this year, I kind of am. A lot of buzz. Depth, quarterback. Depth and receiver. Special players that could be had in certain teams. Now, I say this as someone as a New York Giants fan, and we're picking 11th right now, and there's rumors about the Giants and Dave Gettleman wanting to trade out of the pick, which, whatever. I don't care. Get one value in the back end, I guess. But I'm really excited about this draft because there's a lot of moves being made at top. There's a lot of question marks beyond number one. There's no question Trevor Lawrence will be the number one pick in the draft. I mean, no one's questioning that. But 2 or 3, the Niners moved to number 3. Is Mac Jones in Alabama going to the Niners? Zach Wilson, will he definitely go to the Jets? I mean, all the mocks haven't gone there that I've read. And I'm not really a big mock draft guy personally, And the kid Pitts in Florida, where is he going to go? He's special. At least looks special. The next Gronk, maybe. Lots of moving parts here, and of course the quarterback carousels and all that. Lots of things to look out for. The Patriots, who are they going to draft? Are they going to get a quarterback? Are they move up in the draft to get a quarterback? Because Cam Newton is probably not the long-term solution by virtue of a 1-year deal. Lots of excitement, which is why I'm excited about this draft, because there's a lot of questions that may be answered next Thursday around this time. And of course, when I look at the draft, I always get 3 things I'm interested in. Of course, number 1, the New York Giants, what are they doing? Number 2, who's number 1? And number 3, what's the shocking narratives? So this is a definitely exciting draft. Looking forward to it, and I'm glad I'm off Thursday. I'm actually glad I don't work on Thursday too, so I can actually take in the draft. So should be fun. We'll see what happens. All right. Let's talk about something off the grid here. How about Dwayne Johnson, who used to play in the NFL? Well, used to play football, should I say? Dwayne Johnson, also known as The Rock. I'm a wrestling fan, so of course I'm going to call him The Rock. I know more as The Rock. The biggest star in Hollywood, but probably the biggest star in the world in general, in movies. There was a poll that was done about 2 weeks ago, and I actually meant to touch on this last week, but I didn't have a chance to. I kept it in my notes. There was a poll that said that 46% of people will actually vote for Dwayne The Rock Johnson for president of the United States, or for candidacy. Dwayne basically to run for president. Gotta tell you, I was thinking about that. When I first saw it, I was like, this is another celebrity bullshit, idea. Who cares, But I thought about it actually, and looking where we're at politically speaking, where we're at society, pop and culturally, and all that. I actually think Dwayne Johnson would make a very good president. A decent president, actually, because it doesn't take much. Not saying presidents don't have a lot to do, whatever, but it's not a dictatorship. It's not just them doing the job. They have to talk to everyone, both parties. There's the Congress and all that, and many other legs and elements to the job. And I feel like Dwayne Johnson has the kind of the attitude and the wherewithal. Like, even if someone's not experienced, not experienced. I mean, look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump was experienced in politics, and he became president of the United States. Now, you can judge whatever the hell you think he did a good job or not. I mean, there's definitely a polarized position on that. A lot of people think he did a great job. A lot of people think he did a horrible job. I'm not going to get into that now, because I've already discussed my feelings on Trump for years, and you guys can work with that. Okay? But Dwayne Johnson, I look at Dwayne Johnson, and seeing, and of course, being a big wrestling fan, I was way ahead of the curve for everybody else with Dwayne Johnson, and he was a registered Republican at one point years back. Even endorsed George W. Bush back in 2000. I think it was 2000, I believe, 2000 Republican convention, and he endorsed Joe Biden this past election. Not sure if he's changed politically or just a one-off. I mean, it doesn't really matter at this point, but his attitude, like, he's one of the things I like about Dwayne Johnson, one thing else, is he's one of the most authentic celebrities out there. Like, what you see with him on Instagram, it's really, I really believe truly who he is, because he's always been this way, even before he became this big movie star. Like, if you follow Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, back when he was doing WWE and wrestling and Top of the World, him and Stone Cold Steve Austin, like, there's a lot of elements to that guy who he is today. A lot of his personality is very, very, very much in sync with who he is today. To me, he's actually kind of authentic in that way, even as big as he is, with all the 200 million followers he has on Instagram and beyond and all that. He feels very authentic, and I feel like a lot of that would be needed in Washington at the White House. And I think he would actually fit the role decently. I think someone like him would actually cool down the political tensions on both sides. Because obviously the tensions are sky high, have been for not just the last 4 years, but really honestly, it's been this way since probably 1994 when Bill Clinton was president. I would go back to 20-something, almost 30 years. The political, divide has been really polarized. It's gotten progressively worse and worse and worse through the years. Especially when you add social media and you add the anger of both sides, especially on the fringes. But I feel like he'd be good for the moment. His personality would fit the moment. It would turn down the volume on strife and all that. I feel like he would fit the role well. Now, obviously, politically, what we do politically, I don't know. I don't know his positions on things. Like I said, he was a Rest Republican years ago. He endorsed George Bush, and then he endorsed Joe Biden this past election. So you would maybe say centrist, I guess. I don't know. It was like me. It's not a bad thing being centrist. I know being a centrist gets like a lot of negative pull with a lot of places, a lot of people. I'm here to tell you, fuck you, because I'm a centrist. I don't give a shit. Deal with it. That's kind of mean, actually. That's kind of mean. So, yeah, I think The Rock would actually be a solid president. I'll go for it. I thought if he went president, I'd probably go for him. Just saying, why not? We had Donald Trump for 4 years. Why couldn't The Rock actually survive 4 years or more? Who knows? So, all right, one of the biggest stories last couple of days I want to touch on. LeBron James, which by the way, he's saw a report today. He might be come back. He should be coming back to the team next week, getting healthy. And again, another story that connects with the Derek Chauvin trial. Post Chauvin verdict, and LeBron James, obviously the day, like minutes after the verdict came down, he had tweeted the word accountability and all that, which I agree with because I named my last episode accountability as well too, so I'm with him on that one. Then they had the other tragedy that happened in Ohio the same day. I believe the tragedy happened days before that. I'm not sure if it was that same day, whatever. But the cop that killed the foster child, 15-year-old, trying to bring up a fight with, she had a knife and obviously would not comply. All that. But LeBron James tweeted immediately after seeing the footage and all that with a picture of the cop saying, "You're next," with I can't remember what the emojis were on that one, but he got heavily criticized for the tweet, so bad that he actually took the tweet down. He did come back tweeting with 2 tweets after that, and he said this. I'll read this verbatim so you get a little idea what he said after taking down the tweet. Basically saying that I'm so damn tired of seeing black people killed by police. I took the tweet down because it's being used to create more hate. This isn't about one officer. It's about the entire system, and they always use our words to create more racism. I am so desperate for more accountability. Anger does any of us any good. Yeah, I probably meant to say anger does not make any of us any good, and it includes myself. Gathering all the facts and educating does, though. My anger is there for what happened to that little girl. My sympathy goes to her family, and may justice prevail. Okay, so the tweets he responded with after, in hindsight, was good. It's good tweets. Everything I've been saying, but I'm kind of somewhat torn. I actually think the tweet he did before that took down was the wrong move to do anyway. You're LeBron James. You have an influence. People hang on your every word, but I can relate to the anger also too. So I see. The thing is, what bothers me about people's criticism of LeBron James with the tweet, and by the way, I'm also being critical of the tweet too. So don't think I'm trying to defend LeBron James here because he was wrong for what he did, in my opinion. But it's not like you're going to agree with LeBron James anyway. Even if LeBron James didn't say a word or said the opposite thing, you were never going to praise him for anyway. People look for things to bitch about. We're not a society where people don't give a shit about listening. People just want to talk, react, and let it lie. LeBron James included, by the way. LeBron James did the same thing too. Tweeted something out in anger and just without the facts coming in. Without the facts coming in. Just kind of tweeted in anger. And again, I can relate to the anger. I think anybody, regardless of how much money you make, where your status is and all that, we can all relate to that anger in some way. But there is a responsibility placed. And by the way, LeBron James state you want. People say, oh, well, he's a human being. Yeah. But LeBron James has put himself in a position to be that guy, be a responsible guy, be a leader type. He put himself in that place. So heavy is the hand that wears the crown. You do carry that to some degree. Okay? A lot of the criticism towards LeBron James, from people on the right especially, is disingenuous because he can't do anything right in your eyes anyway, no matter what he says. You know what I'm saying? I got into it with Clay Travis. I actually, by the way, I did a little Unfiltered podcast a couple days ago with Clay Travis because I believe Clay Travis is actually a pretty talented guy. Very good writer. He's built a great brand. I explained in that podcast, just a little 10-minute episode, whatever, that when I started doing the media thing on my own, like a couple years ago, when I started Earnestly Media back in 2016, he was one of my major inspirations and influences, not in terms of this creating your own brand from scratch, investing in your own brand. Clay is great there. But Clay Travis, like I said on the podcast, I'll say it here too, comes off as a guy that's unauthentic now. He knows where his bread is buttered. He's now part of that right-wing shill, GOP, whatever it may be. And by the way, that's his right. He can do what he wants. I'm not criticizing him for doing that. It's just unauthentic. And the reason I got mad at Clay Travis is because I saw a thing on Instagram, on an Outkick page, on Instagram, IG, for the youngins, of course. And he's now promoting anti-LeBron James t-shirts, merchandise. Le fraud, Le Moron, stuff with China, due to criticism with China a couple years ago, which, by the way, I actually agree with Clay on that one, and LeBron was kind of wrong on the whole China thing. But that's another story of the day. We know that. My position on that anyway. And it's funny because I'm frustrated because, like, here's a guy that actually, I guess hates LeBron James now, but yet is monetizing on him, on his likeness. To me, it's kind of pathetic. Now, obviously, I made a decision to tweet that, and then people came on my ass about that on the same page. So whatever, it is what it is. You're allowed your opinion. It's fine. But to me, it's just pathetic. That's how I felt. But LeBron should have. I mean, obviously, what he did, my opinion was wrong because not only that, the tweet was innocuous too. In fact, when you make innocuous tweets that can be interpreted any which way, it's very dangerous. And it was like steak on the fire it's like steak for ravenous, people on the opposite side of the spectrum. So, he was LeBron wrong for what he did? Yeah, he was. The tweet was wrong. Do I think LeBron James overall is a well-intentioned guy? Yes, I do. I do think, though, he is a young man that still gets emotional about these things. And again, you have to use logic. Even though there is killings, police killings, black men getting killed by police, you can't just jump the gun every which way. I can relate to the anger. I do. But you have to be very careful what you say, especially in the position you are, because there are consequences to that. And that goes both ways. So for anyone on a platform, either political persuasion, it's kind of sad that we look at police killings or any killings that matter of race as a political argument. It should be political. Life is life. Just saying. So, I'm not going to sit here and all of a sudden throwing my LeBron James jerseys. I'm not doing that. He fucked up, he did something wrong, and move forward like anybody else. So I just think the criticism on the right, most of it anyway, is just fucking disingenuous. Like, stop. Okay, it's not like you like the guy anyway. He could have a cure of cancer. You could find a way to say, oh well, LeBron James is this bad guy anyway. So stop. It's disingenuous. Come on. All right. Some music notes here. Personally, anyway. I mean, some listeners to this podcast, I'm not sure if they're metalheads, but if you like metal, of course, one of my favorite bands is Fear Factory. Although they have had a mess last couple of years of a lot of like legal issues. Burton Bell, the lead singer's not in the band anymore, obviously, as of last year. Well, they have new material out finally. They released their first single. I forgot the name. It's called Decoder Disorder, whatever the hell it is. Good song, obviously. I was actually scared to listen to it first because I wasn't sure if it was new material with a new singer, but it actually is material they recorded with Burton before he left the band, before all the legal issues happened. Oh, by the way, the song is called Disruptor, for the record. Disruptor. Good song, and I'm looking forward to the album, of course. It's going to be obviously bittersweet because he's no longer in the band anymore, and they're going to major changes. The only original member of the band now still existing is Dino Caceres, the guitar player, who is so talented, who I love the guy as a musical talent. He was phenomenal, but I really think they should just kill the band and start fresh. He's had 2 other bands in the past. Let's do what's another band to start with? But another band from scratch. Like Fear Factor to me is Dino, Burton. I mean, obviously I miss Christian, I miss Raymond. But there's been so much mumbo jumbo in this band in the last decade. They can't get their shit straight, legally speaking, and all that. It's just frustrating, man. I mean, am I happy we have new material coming? Absolutely. But I'm just kind of over it, man. Like, seriously. If they would have break up today, I wouldn't have minded. They had a nice run of 30 years. Move forward, So, some sad news I was reading yesterday that came down the pike. Especially if you're a Bears fan, a Chicago Bears fan, Steve Mongo McMichael. I was reading an article in the Chicago Tribune. Apparently is battling ALS. Very sad news. I read the entire article, which delved into the inside of what they're going through, him and his wife and his daughter. His daughter's 13 years old. A lot of pressure there. And apparently the disease is it's happened rapidly with him too. Like he deteriorated a lot in the last 5 months. Apparently he found out about he had ALS, I think late last year in November. He hasn't made any public appearance since then, and the only reason why he announced this week was because it's basically him announcing that he's no longer will be a public figure, and this is the last time him will be in public in any way because of this having ALS and Balance disease. Like I said, very sad. I didn't get to watch him much in NFL because by the time I started watching NFL in 1990, he retired 3 years later. I remember mostly, if you're a wrestling fan again, another wrestling reference I have to bring up here. He was actually in WCW a couple of years. Actually was in the Four Horsemen, Ric Flair and Arn Anderson and all that. And it's funny because if you follow me on social media, if you follow me on Instagram especially too, I have a tendency of sharing videos from an account called WrestleBotch, which is one of my favorite accounts out there. It's an account showing the biggest botches in wrestling history. And there was a thing they started doing recently called Mongo Mondays because I love Mongo McMichael. He was terrible in the ring. He was terrible, and he has botches for days to the point where they made him Mongo Mondays. And now I feel bad now. Am I still going to share that now that he has ALS? I don't know, man. It's sad, obviously. But he was bad. But you look at that, and he was a very, very good football player. Obviously in wrestling wasn't successful at that, but he had a nice little run. Just praying for him and his family. Obviously going through a lot. Read that article if you get a chance. I think that this information also how to donate to a GoFundMe for him to. Apparently they need to get some material to help him out with for him to transfer. Between, I think home and some of that nature. Just check out the article on the Chicago Tribune and has that information. You can donate money to the cause also too. So prayers for Tobango, of course. All right, fine before I go. Holy shit. The New York Knicks, as of this recording, have won 9 straight games. Not only they're good enough to make the playoffs, they may actually avoid the play-in. I'm looking right now on my phone at the standings as we speak in the NBA Eastern Conference. Pulling it up right now. Give me a second. Okay, here we go. The Knicks right now are the 4th seed in the East. They are 34-27. Okay, 34-27. Again, won 9 games in a row. They're not gonna they're not gonna catch Milwaukee. Although the only 3 back in Milwaukee, actually, or 4 back in Milwaukee for the 3 seed. We talk about Coach of the Year and all that. The different coaches, of course. You sure Tom Thibodeau's not Coach of the Year? Because he's doing this on a roster of guys who are just there to rise assets. Just there, obviously, just for salary cap purposes. To hit the floor of the salary cap. Most of these guys on the roster are on 1-year deals. The Derrick Roses of the world, and you name it. Nerlens Noel, all that. So the fact that Tom Thibodeau got these guys to buy in, and now they're a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference right now, won 9 straight games, that is insane. That is amazing. If the Knicks end the year as a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, you have to seriously consider Tom Thibodeau Coach of the Year. You really do. I know Quinn Snyder will get his look-sees, and the guy in Phoenix, whoever the coach is in Phoenix, I don't remember his name right off the top of my head, so whatever. And deservedly so. But the New York Knicks were supposed to be the worst team in basketball this year. Okay? I did my over-under podcast back in December with my boys, Zach and Chris, and we all said the Knicks are going to be one of the worst teams in basketball, if not the worst. Because this roster, there was no really breakout stars in this roster. Julius Randle, I guess, is going to be that guy now. Julius Randle's going to win Most Improved Player of the Year. He might be low-key MVP candidate, too. I don't know. I'm not saying going to win it. Just saying, you put together a list of 5 guys, when you consider the injuries, too, also, you might have to be in that conversation. The Knicks won 9 straight games. I can't believe this. This is insane. Unbelievable. I'm not a Knicks fan, but I'll say it again. I'm a diehard Heat fan. You guys know this. But the NBA is so much fun to watch when the Knicks are relevant for good reasons. Not for the bad reasons like the last 3 decades or 2 decades. For good reasons. So, wow. Congrats to the Knicks and their fans, man. Unbelievable. Anyway, that'll do it for this podcast. I went 42 minutes today. That's great. A little long one. At least for the solo ones. So, again, I'm on Twitter, of course, at EJChristian7, Earnestly Media. You can find it on all platforms, especially on YouTube. Guys, if you don't have YouTube, if you have YouTube, please subscribe to Earnestly Media. We have clips of these shows. Of course, my wrestling podcast, Take the Wrestling Podcast as well, and Unfiltered. And my wife and I will be bringing back a podcast very soon. That's a Christian very soon. Of course, Earnestly Media, of course, on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, like I said. Earnestly.net is the website. And of course, all the podcasts I just mentioned are all on all the podcast catchers, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, you name it. So we will talk soon. Till next one. Later.